All right, let's do it. This is the socially distanced edition of Burnin Rubber for June 26th, 2020. My name is Sterling Siemens. I'm joined by my regular co-hosts Justin Parmer and Hal Estep. Now, if the background behind me is any indication of what the show is going to be about, then you are absolutely right. This is not going to be the normal show that we usually do. Normally, we start out by recapping the events in racing that happened on the track over the weekend. But given what happened this weekend, leading into the early stages of this week, and even into yesterday on Thursday, we felt that it was necessary to start with what is the elephant in the room. So I want us to go back and start with what happened on Saturday when the teams arrived in Talladega. So on Saturday, when ARCA and NASCAR Xfinity Series teams were arriving in Talladega, there was a fairly large group of cars, trucks, and motorcycles, along with other vehicles, that had Confederate flags attached to them. It was a Confederate flag protest. Now, for those who haven't heard by now, the Confederate flag was banned. Its presence was banned by NASCAR on any of its facilities and premises about 2.5 weeks ago. This comes after the murder of George Floyd in Minneapolis, and then Bubba Wallace protesting on pit road at Atlanta with an "I Can't Breathe" t-shirt. And then after the flag ban was passed, Wallace ran a Black Lives Matter car in the Martinsville race later that night. The group that was protesting outside was peaceful. However, it did garner a lot of attention. What also garnered a lot of attention was that on Sunday, which was supposed to be when the NASCAR Cup race at Talladega was held, a plane flew over the Talladega Superspeedway with a sign that said "Defund NASCAR." And behind that sign was a large Confederate rebel flag flying behind it. That garnered quite a bit of attention, but the race got postponed to Monday. However, perhaps the biggest news item out of this entire weekend was that when NASCAR made an announcement late Sunday evening, and I'll read the announcement word for word. This was the NASCAR statement relayed on June 22nd. That was early Monday morning. It said the following: late Sunday afternoon, NASCAR was made aware that a noose was found in the garage stall of the 43 team. We are angry and outraged and cannot state strongly enough how seriously we take this heinous act. We have launched an immediate investigation and will do everything we can to identify the person or persons responsible and eliminate them from the sport. As we have stated unequivocally, there is no place for racism in NASCAR, and this act only strengthens our resolve to make the sport open and welcoming for all. Now, again, that was the statement issued by NASCAR. You'll see it right here. The statement that NASCAR made late Sunday afternoon. That was put out on Twitter early Monday morning. After the statement by NASCAR was made, the reaction among local media, or media that was following NASCAR along with the drivers, was quick, very swift, and very immediate. Because on Monday, during the pre-race, Bubba Wallace's car was pushed to the front of pit road at pit exit at Talladega by the rest of the 39 Cup drivers on the grid, as well as their crew members marching behind them to the end of pit road. Richard Petty himself, who had not been to a race during the COVID-19 pandemic, in a way jeopardizing his own health. I mean, he's 82 years old. Richard Petty himself flew to Talladega to be with his driver during that afternoon race on Monday at Talladega. Now, Bubba went on to finish 14th in the race. After the race happened, there were a lot of questions as to how the noose was in the garage stall. NASCAR earlier on Monday, before the race, contacted the FBI branch in Birmingham, Alabama, the closest FBI branch to the Talladega Superspeedway, to investigate the incident and investigate the situation to find out what was going on. On Tuesday, the FBI concluded their investigation and had the following message. The FBI eventually determined that no hate crime was committed, and the noose had actually been there for months, since October of 2019. Now, the message reads as follows. The FBI has completed its investigation at Talladega Superspeedway and determined that Bubba Wallace was not the target of a hate crime. The FBI report concludes, and the photographic evidence confirms, that the garage door pull rope fashioned like a noose had been positioned there since as early as last fall. This was obviously well before the 43 team's arrival and garage assignment. We appreciate the FBI's quick and thorough investigation and are thankful to learn that this was not an intentional racist act against Bubba. Or actually, no, that's the NASCAR statement that I'm reading. My apologies. I should be looking at that was the NASCAR statement afterward. We appreciate the FBI's quick and thorough investigation and are thankful to learn that this was not an intentional racist act against Bubba. We remain steadfast in our commitment to providing a welcoming and inclusive environment for all who love racing. Now, the official FBI, or what the findings of the FBI are stated here. On Monday, 15 FBI special agents conducted numerous interviews regarding the situation at Talladega Superspeedway. Now, this is from a joint statement from U.S. Attorney J.E. Town and FBI Special Agent in Charge Johnny Sharp Jr. The message continues, after a thorough review of the facts and evidence surrounding this event, we have concluded that no federal crime was committed. The FBI learned that garage number 4, where the noose was found, was assigned to Bubba Wallace last week. The investigation also revealed evidence, including authentic video confirmed by NASCAR, that the noose found in garage number 4 was in that garage as early as October 2019. Although the noose is now known to have been in garage number 4 in 2019, nobody could have known Mr. Wallace would be assigned to garage number 4 last week. The decision not to pursue federal charges is proper after reviewing all available facts and all applicable federal laws. We offer our thanks to NASCAR, Mr. Wallace, and everyone who cooperated with this investigation. Now, it should also be mentioned that over the weekend, just as a side note, a noose was also found on the property of Sonoma Raceway, which NASCAR goes to at least once a year. Now, they're not going in 2020 because of the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic. However, a noose was reported to have been found by a staff member at Sonoma Raceway. After the FBI concluded its investigation, on Tuesday night, Bubba Wallace was interviewed by Don Lemon of CNN. Bubba insisted that there was a noose there, and that's perhaps the biggest takeaway from there. However, on Thursday, NASCAR and a lot of media that follow the sport put out the photo of the noose in question, because many people had speculated on whether or not it was even a noose to begin with. And this is the picture now. This right here was the noose in question in the 43 garage stall from last weekend. So now that we've gone through everything that has happened, not counting reactions aside from the initial reporting, I'll now invite Justin and Hal into this conversation. I'll start with Hal. You step on this. A lot happened. A lot happened this week, and I don't know. I guess I'll start by asking about what to think about everything that went down this weekend, just with seemingly turmoil in Talladega.
I think this is the most unfortunate coincidence in NASCAR history. That is what this was. It was a horrible coincidence. The timing, which stall, let me put it this way. NASCAR's investigation, they had their officials sweep all the garages across the country. Out of 1,684 stalls, only 11 had pull-down ropes tied in a knot, and only one fashioned like the one found in Bubba Wallace's stall. That is terribly unfortunate. It was there since October, so you know this was not intentional. I don't think anyone would claim it as such because now we know it's not. It was found in the FBI investigation. I don't know. I don't think you sweep a garage when you're assigning stalls and look for what shape the rope is. I don't think that's part of the procedure. Maybe now that might change, but I feel like that this was just tremendously unfortunate. And the reactions, those, I don't even want to think about the reactions because it was horrible on Twitter. I think we all know that. If you check any comment section, it was some of the most, it was a cesspool. I do, however, have to say, this showed something about the NASCAR community in the drivers that can be applauded because they came together with a show of unity that, I mean, I don't know about you guys, it made me a little emotional seeing that how they pushed his car to the front of pit road. And Bubba Wallace, obviously, it meant a lot to him. Having his car owner, Richard Petty, there to support him. Richard Petty said he wanted to come there just to give his driver a hug. I mean, it was a tremendous show of unity, and I wanted to think about the positive because there's too much negative that came out of this. Because one part of it that I from the Don Lemon interview that was a negative people had against Bubba Wallace was his insistence that it was a noose. And then the next day the picture comes out. It was a noose. He was not wrong to insist that it was. Now, it came after the investigation report. It was in between the investigation report coming out and the picture coming out. So it sounded like to a lot of people who don't think straight that he was trying to make it a controversy. No, it was. It was a noose, and that's not normal in a garage. It's not normal. I think it was the crew member seeing that. At first, you could dismiss it as, well, it might be the timing getting people a little bit antsy. No, that was a noose. That was a noose, the only noose in the garages that they swept. It was out of the ordinary. It was unfortunate, but thankfully, there was no hate crime. Thankfully, we got to see some of the great hearts of NASCAR come out on Fox for the pit road show of unity. I think those are the things we need to keep in mind.
I would first probably want to say that, and I am very thankful to the SBI and NASCAR for taking this seriously. This definitely was something that needed to be investigated, and clearly seeing the photo that was provided to us yesterday. I am definitely, most certainly thankful that Bubba Wallace was not targeted in a hate crime. Let us get that out of the way right now. I am very grateful that Bubba Wallace was not a target of a hate crime. With that being said, and with all the unity and all the support that came out this week, this was very, very mishandled by NASCAR. Because unfortunately, they threw their one African-American driver, the one that they were trying to protect, under the bus repeatedly this week. The timeline and definitely screwed things up. On Sunday, it was a very, very strong statement made by NASCAR. It almost made it sound like someone actually did this. Like they had someone on camera who did and commit this act. Or someone that was in the process of committing an act like this. However, as it turns out, that was not the case. Fortunately, that was not the case. but NASCAR made it very intentional that they were going to take a stand for their driver. It was, and what happened, and after the FBI investigation and came out, unfortunately, Bubba Wallace got thrown under the bus after the FBI investigation. And when there was, keep in mind, no proof at that point, no actual visual or evidential proof that there was a noose in the garage. There was no, after the FBI came out, even though the FBI said that was a noose, there was no hard evidence to the general public that confirmed it. And I think that was a very big mistake on NASCAR's part to not release that photo earlier. Now, maybe that was still part of the investigation, and maybe they couldn't. I don't know. However, Bubba Wallace knew that it was a noose, and unfortunately, nobody else was able to back him up on that. Nobody else was able to back him up on the fact that it was a noose until Thursday. Because if you look at that image, that is, I mean, I don't care what your definition of a noose is just looking at it, it looks like a noose. I am not a rope expert, but I think it is pretty clear. I don't care if it's, noose is 12 knots, that's wrapped around. No, that looks like a noose. And anybody who would be trying to, I would say, recreate it that didn't know how to do it would probably make that it look similar. It would look pretty similar to that rope that is hanging in, or that was hung at least in garage stall number 4. Unfortunately, Bubba Wallace got thrown under the bus. And I want to reiterate that because, I mean, in this country, we have definitely, we've seen in something, people have saw something in similar a couple of years back by an F-list actor that has pretty much garnered hate and drove a bunch of criticism towards Bubba Wallace. Unfortunately, the actions of Smollett have deeply affected Bubba Wallace. And I think that's a very tragic thing. And even if you look at today's interview with some of the press members, he's exhausted. He is mentally exhausted. You can just see it in his face. And again, Bubba Wallace, as we have said time and time on this show, whether it was his Blue Email incident or Atlanta or at Martinsville, he wears his heart on his sleeve. He wears his heart on his sleeve. You saw the emotions on Monday. He was on basically the verge of tears. Because you saw how much that affected him. Because he thought he was attacked. He thought he was attacked. He thought he was a victim based on his own race. He doesn't deserve that. Bubba Wallace should not deserve that. Nobody should. The last driver, nobody deserves it, but this should have been done by the time and we got past Wendell Scott. Wendell Scott should have been the last driver to have to deal with this. And not to say, and Wendell Scott didn't deserve it, period, either. But this should have ended in the 60s. Unfortunately, the timing was poor. The location made it even poorer. The surrounding events solidified it. And it just created a perfect storm of mismanagement and misguidedness. And we let our guard down. The media definitely let its guard down. We did not follow up and we did not question it. And first off, I want to apologize for that. And as a member of the media, where I consider myself, we let our guard down. We definitely let our guard down this week because we did not question it. We did not question NASCAR's initial report. And one of the first things that is taught to us is, if your mother loves you, you oughta fact check it. If she says she loves you, you oughta fact check it.
Yeah.
We let our guard down this week, and by doing so, we unfortunately let Bubba Wallace down. Because this is going to be, unfortunately, this is going to carry with Bubba Wallace as to some fans for the rest of his career. Yeah. Unfortunately, this week, to people who do not watch NASCAR and who do not do their research, do not listen to people who are ignorant to their own biases, left, right, center, Republican, Democrat, black, white, Mexican, I don't care. They're going to look at Bubba Wallace as the next Jesse Smollett. And again, I think that's the biggest crime that was committed this week. Sterling, over to you.
Yeah, I mean, really well said, Justin. I want to start by saying this though, and it pains me so much that people are making comparisons from Bubba Wallace to Jussie Smollett. I want to make something really clear right now. Bubba Wallace is not Jussie Smollett. Let's just say that right now, because Jussie Smollett basically faked a hate crime. And this was when he was in the middle of contract negotiations to try and be paid more money from the Fox TV show Empire, when he was still there as part of the show. With Bubba Wallace, it's hard to find any gain from trying to fake a hate crime, especially in this climate, the political and social climate that we live in right now. To anyone saying that this is a hoax, that's not the case. It just isn't. I mean, I've even got an old dictionary with me right here, the Webster's Dictionary.
You might want to turn off the background real quick, just
Yeah, it was a little fuzzy, I understand, but the hoax definition, if I could just look for it, basically, this was what we saw this weekend was a colossal misunderstanding. And there were some things that in my mind NASCAR got right, but there was a lot that they didn't get right. And also, to go off Justin's point, media members and just pretty outspoken fans of the sport, we got it wrong. We didn't follow up with it. I had a pretty big reaction to it on Twitter, and for that I apologize, because ultimately my reaction, along with just my judgment, it was ahead before any facts got out. So for that, I apologize. But for anybody going out of their way to basically call Bubba Wallace a racial epithet or compare him unfairly to Jussie Smollett, that, if I call that out, I will not apologize for that. I'm just making that point very clear right now. A hoax, the definition of a hoax that I have in here from the Webster's Dictionary is a trick or fraud, especially one meant as a practical joke. I mean, I don't think there's any joking about a noose that is found in the garage stall. And yes, it is a noose. I will maintain that. In fact, I'll show this again, because this is what was found in the garage stall for Bubba Wallace's team. And I want to reiterate on this. There was no ill intent. It had been there since last October. In fact, it should be noted that last October was the first race for the new Talladega garage stalls, because Talladega tore down all of their old garages after the spring 2019 event that the Cup Series held there. They rebuilt them over the summer, and they were reopened with the new Talladega garage experience for last fall's Cup race in October.
We should also note that the image circulating around with the 74 truck where the noose was found, that was in 2017. That would have been destroyed with the old garage. I do want to point that out real quick.
Yes, exactly. But this was the noose that was found on Sunday, and it's, in my opinion, it's very believable to be the Sunday because of the damp pavement. It had rained there on Sunday. The Kroger logo in the background is pretty clear as well, pretty consistent with the logo you'd find nowadays. But I do want to turn off my background momentarily because I do want to show this part. The noose that we just saw, this is a hangman's noose defined in a textbook of knots and rope work that I managed to dig out of my closet this past week. And I even showed the picture of the noose from this past weekend to my dad, who grew up in the Boy Scouts, and he pretty clearly told me that, yeah, that's a noose. So a lot of people have been having a really, in my mind, a petty argument as to whether or not there was a noose in the garage. It's a noose. I think we can just pretty much agree on that. It's a noose. Now, the thing that I wish NASCAR had done is that they had gotten that out sooner. But as we look at what happened, because, Justin, you pretty much nailed down all these points already. Analyzing NASCAR's response, what they did right and what they did wrong. I think NASCAR was absolutely right in doing an investigation in the first place, because it shows that they cared about their driver, given everything that's been happening recently in America, and even at the track when you had Confederate flag protesters outside. You had a big giant rebel flag being flown over in the sky above the track. It makes sense to at least have a look at this. It shows that they're not sweeping it under the rug, that they didn't do that. They took it seriously. They should be commended for that. But reporting it with hate crime implications right away, I think that is where NASCAR really screwed up. And they set up this whole thing for failure. Just assuming it was a hate crime right away really got them in trouble. Now, I do want to mention that the noose in the garage area was found by Bubba Wallace's crew members, one of his crewmen. Bubba himself did not see the noose in live there in person. He was only told of it after one of his crew members reported it to the crew chief of the 43 team, who then reported it to Steve Phelps, the president of NASCAR, and Steve Phelps himself informed Bubba Wallace of the noose that was found in his garage stall. But reporting it with immediate implications of a hate crime, when there's not a lot of evidence there to go off of, that was bad. And it was wrong of us in the media and a lot of the fans out there who just took the hate crime implication and ran with it. And even stating that NASCAR officials and administration stating they would do the same thing the same way after the FBI concluded their investigation. I'm sorry, that just didn't really sit well with me. On Thursday, after the photo of the noose was put out, Steve Phelps clarified that had he approached looking at this situation differently, he would say that it was alleged to be a hate crime. He would include alleged in there somewhere. But this just really, really, really mishandled by NASCAR. Although, and I know this might not sound the best, but at the same time, though, like Bubba Wallace, he wears his heart on his sleeve. He's one of the more emotional drivers out there. While a lot of us in the community, while a lot of fans like emotion being showed, at certain times, I feel like it can be to Bubba's detriment as well. Because then you see, like, if you go out on social media, which if for anyone watching, please don't go out there.
No,
don't go on Facebook or Twitter. Just don't. If you're looking to find 100% support for Bubba, you're not going to find it, unfortunately. because people took Bubba's incident with Alex Bowman from last year, squirting the water bottle or Powerade or whatever it was in Bowman's face as Bowman was receiving medical attention. They're using that against Bubba in this current situation. They're just using stuff that Bubba has done in the past against him for this particular thing. And it's so unfortunate. And it's also incredibly unfair. Now, the thing that really did it over the top for me was the comparisons to Jussie Smollett. Jussie had intentions behind what he did. I mean, he faked it. There was no faking this. The noose was in the garage stall. Bubba was informed of it, and given everything that has been going on, I mean, he reacted probably what we would react if we were in his situation. But at the same time, though, just I feel, though, as if his appearances that he's made on, like, The View or his interview with Don Lemon, I'm just not sure if so many press engagements are the right thing to do right now. Because Justin mentioned, he is clearly exhausted. In my mind, what needs to happen is, right now for Bubba Wallace, he needs to have somebody on his PR. Well, number one, telling him to get off social media, to stay off there for at least a week, maybe longer, maybe a month.
Probably even probably Kyle Larson and just not delete it, but just don't go on it at this point.
Yeah. I mean, don't go on there and let everything die down, because over time, I feel like people are going to find something different to complain about or harp on. That's hopefully, fingers crossed. But I feel like someone just needs to be there for Bubba. Let him know that, I mean, it won't be the end of the world. And at the same time, NASCAR, they need to learn from this. Let's not overstate this, because it's clear that they had good intentions when they made this investigation. But it backfired so horribly that this is a public relations debacle of epic proportions for this series and this organization. NASCAR needs to look at this situation, and if something like this ever comes up in the future, which, knock on wood, it never happens again. But if in the case that situation does happen again, NASCAR needs to look at how they handled this and learn from it. They just need to be better. And even people on social media and in the media ourselves, we need to be better, because just the comments that I've seen from so many people on Twitter and Facebook and YouTube and Instagram, everywhere. I mean, it's everywhere. It's so toxic. I mean, like, I would hope that, I'll admit, I mean, I'm pretty active on Facebook in my own profile. Just from what I saw, I genuinely considered getting rid of Facebook entirely this week, because there were several times where I looked at it, and Facebook and Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, everything. I looked at it all, and the one central thing that came to mind was just one sentence, one thought: social media is a mistake. Frank, that's what the first thing that came to mind was. Well, not the first, but the big thing that kept coming back. And these comparisons between Bubba Wallace and Jussie Smollett, they're unfair, but there's still going to be people out there that will keep it up. And it's a shame. It's unfortunate, but I dearly hope that Bubba has the strength in him to keep this going. I mean, he's already shown some really strong, gutsy stuff this week and even the last couple of weeks. His presence and his just him being there, his advocacy, it has single-handedly changed the trajectory of this series, of this organization, of NASCAR's future. That's something that, in my mind, should be celebrated. And even though there was no hate crime committed this weekend, which, don't get me wrong, I am relieved that there was no hate crime committed, because there were a lot of implications that it could have been a driver, a crew member, a NASCAR official, a member of Talladega track personnel. The fact that there was no hate crime committed, first of all, thank God that there was no hate crime committed, because had that have been someone in the garage, it would have been a really bad look on the sport right then and there as well. And also, some drivers out there, former drivers, really showed their true colors. Dustin Skinner and Bobby Hamilton Jr. in particular, they put themselves out as racists. I mean, there's no point in not giving them recognition. They're pretty well known, and they put themselves out there. So they need to deal with their consequences. But as for the unity, the show of unity that we saw on Monday, that was one of the most powerful, if not the most powerful pre-race event that I've ever witnessed. And I've been following this sport since like late 2006. To see that happen, I'm glad that I saw it on TV. I will admit I teared up a little when I saw it. And by the way, huge props to Mike Joy for that just grand slam opening voiceover. Because it's times like this and events like that happen where Mike Joy really comes to the forefront and delivers. He says exactly what needs to be said when the time calls. I mean, you think back to after Dale Earnhardt won the Daytona 500 in 1998, or when Kevin Harvick won RCR's first race after Dale Earnhardt's passing just 3 weeks prior. You think back to stuff like that, and then you relate it to this. Mike Joy was there for all three races, for all three events. And the thing that strikes me about Mike Joy is that you can tell that he's emotional too, but he has enough of that oomph in him to just power through it and deliver just the perfect words for that situation. I mean, that's why Mike Joy is one of my biggest influences in calling sports. So big props to Mike Joy for that pre-race narration. In terms of how can we be better? I mean, we just need to be more open to conversation. I need to be more open. All of us do. And that's not just us three, that's everybody. And it doesn't matter what side you're on, left, right, what ethnicity you are, what race you are, what economic background you come from. That's everybody. Because I feel like we've gotten so lost in all of the drama, everything going on, that we just need to take a step back and think about what's going on. I did pull out a couple quotes from the pilot episode of a show called The Newsroom, and the character Will McAvoy, played by Jeff Daniels. During a rant that the character Will McAvoy gave in the opening scene of The Newsroom, one of the quotes he puts out is, "We sacrificed, we cared about our neighbors, we put our money where our mouths were, and we never beat our chest." In my mind, we've seen a lot of chest beating from a lot of people trying to play the gotcha game with NASCAR's failed investigation, or at least their complete mishandling of it. A second thing that I remember, and I didn't write it down in words, but I remember back to it. There's a song that I remember hearing by the rap duo Gang Starr, and it's from their song that they have called Moment of Truth, which, I'm not one really for rap music, I'll admit, but this is the one song that really sticks with me because I love it so much. And the quote goes, "Actions have reactions, don't be quick to judge. You may not know the hardships people don't speak of. It's best to step back and observe with couth, for we all must meet our moment of truth." So I feel like we've gone over this subject for quite a while. We just need to be more open. And as for changes that NASCAR and Bubba Wallace, this, just looking back on this whole situation, there were good intentions behind it, but it was mishandled. And above all, it was a great, great misunderstanding of what actually happened. But, and I'll leave on the positive, because for one, there was no hate crime. Bubba Wallace was not targeted, at least not actively in such a malicious way. And now we know that if he is targeted, he has an entire NASCAR garage and several officials and administrators from the sport that have his full support, and they have his back in case
every man on every crew. Every man on every crew. That is something I will say. This only 4 other people have gotten that salute. Only 4 people have ever gotten the every man, but I kind of been dubbing it as the every man on every crew salute. Jeff Gordon, Tony Stewart, Dale Jr., Dale Earnhardt. Those are the only 4. And Bubba Wallace, this was the 5th. That's how important this moment was. That's how seriously the drivers took it. And it shows that they are willing to step up the bat for one of their own.
Amen. Amen. All right. So now that we've gotten that out of the way, everyone, let's just take a deep breath. All right. So we talked about it. We addressed it. Now let's get into the racing, because there was actually some really, really great racing. Not in the ARCA race, though. And let's start with that. The ARCA race that was held on Saturday, the first race of that day, very, very uneventful. Just saying that outright. It was a total snoozer. But in the end, Drew Dollar, driving for Venerini Motorsports, grabbed his first career ARCA victory after his teammate Ryan Repko pulled out and couldn't get around him. Didn't even, from what people saw on the TV, they thought that he let off the gas to give Drew Dollar the win. But Ryan Repko insisted, no, I pulled out, and aerodynamics, I could not get to him once I pulled out to try to get around him. Now, Drew Dollar won the event. It's his first career ARCA win. But Michael Self had the big highlight of the race, because he got turned by was that Riley Herbst in the
might have been.
Yeah, I think it was Herbst, because I know that there were a lot of people that said, man, he crashed twice in one day. We'll get to why in a moment, but Riley Herbst ended up spinning Michael Self while they were going for the lead. Self did like a half spin and then just saved it and kept going. I don't even think a caution came out for it, but
nope, it didn't.
Oh yeah, like Michael Self, he kept it going. He lost the win, which was unfortunate, but hey, still a great save. Something Joey Chitwood would be proud of. Yeah, not really much to talk about, because it was really a dud of a race. Then you get to the NASCAR Xfinity Unhinged 300, at Talladega. We had a first-time winner in this race. It was someone who really should have gotten a win long ago at Daytona 2018. Yellow line rule is ridiculous. I'll say that. But Justin Haley got his first win, and this time it's a win he gets to keep. Justin Haley won at Talladega. It's his first career Xfinity Series win. It's something that one of us in the crew saw coming, and you're not going to believe this. It was Hal Estep. Hal, you actually got one right.
I got one right, and it was the one where I was really throwing it out there.
I mean, hey, props to you. You got it right. I should mention Ross Chastain finished second in the race. He got the $100,000 bonus for the Xfinity Dash for Cash program. And one more thing, Jeb Burton, who Justin predicted to win, Jeb Burton was going with Justin Haley there right at the very end, but couldn't quite pull it out.
Broken clocks acts right at least twice a day.
Well, I mean, they were close. I mean, Jeb Burton, there were also some talk that Justin Haley might have jumped that last restart. Personally, I didn't really see where Justin went wrong there, but I mean, Justin Haley, not Justin Palmer. I want to clarify that, even though we have two guys with the same name there. But yeah, I'd say just congrats to Justin Haley. And finally, I mean, it's a win he gets to keep. And AJ Allmendinger ran really well too. The Colleague boys really worked well together during that last run, especially the last lap.
They are getting better. That is scary.
Let's talk also about this. The Geico 500, it was supposed to be held Sunday, then got moved to Monday. The race itself was one for the ages, in my mind. A lot of people loved it. The package that NASCAR implemented for this race with the no aero ducts and somewhat reduced speeds, it was absolutely bang on. They got it perfect. And I know we said that about the last package, but no cars flipped over in this race, which, I mean, it's great. You don't need cars to flip over to make a great race. Or even a big one. It didn't even have a big one. Again, and I want to emphasize, crashes are entertaining, but they don't have to make great NASCAR races. This was a great race that was on Monday. And it had one of the most incredible finishes to it, because Kevin Harvick led the white flag lap. They go down to turn 1, turn 2. Everyone's still kind of fanning out. Then Ryan Blaney gets a big run, goes outside Harvick. Wreck happens behind them. But another thing that I'll admit really surprised me, NASCAR kept it green. They kept them racing to the line. Blaney gets around Harvick, and then Eric Jones gets an almighty run with John Hunter Nemechek behind him. And then Blaney goes up to try to get the side draft to interrupt the run that Jones has. It ends up putting Jones in the wall, takes Nemechek with him. Eric Almirola is getting a big run through the Trioval, and he almost does like a Regan Smith from 2013, which I don't think just a side note, when Regan Smith won the Xfinity race at Talladega in 2013, I don't think he gets enough credit for that move that he pulled to go from the top all the way to the bottom in almost less than a second, basically. Just going like that. Almirola almost did that, except he spun across Ricky Stenhouse's nose, and then Stenhouse was getting a big run, and then Stenhouse is almost there with Blaney at the line, but Blaney edges him out. Eric Almirola finishes third while he's spinning backwards on the apron. And Eric Jones, I think he finished fifth, despite the fact that his nose was all shoved in on the car. And it was chaos. But for any new fans that NASCAR has gained over the last couple weeks, even Bernard Pollard was just like, wow, that race was great. I'll admit, I even retweeted Bernard Pollard and said, welcome to NASCAR. You're going to love it here. So the racing at Talladega. I'll start with Justin on this. The racing that we saw, let's forget ARCA because that was terrible. The Xfinity and the Cup race, great stuff. I mean, what do you think?
Well, I mean, and we had a terrible appetizer. That's what happens when you have only 20 cars in ARCA, and 15 of them, I mean, and only really 9 of them can actually run and competitively. So that pretty much kills any single hope of a package you can have. And so, and it's ARCA, what you expect. Xfinity, it was a good race. It was a solid race. It wasn't anything spectacular by any means, but it was a solid race. So I can't deny that. And I mean, obviously, a colleague racing is getting a lot better. And AJ, whenever they have the 3 cars on the racetrack, they are a dangerous crew. They are a very dangerous crew when they have all 3 cars on the racetrack. Wish they had that for Daytona earlier in the year, but some failures kind of prevented that. So I guess there's a little bit of compensation and from Daytona earlier in the year. And then you got to the Cup race that was supposed to be Sunday and probably should have been Sunday. Let me first say this. And I'm going to make this point quick. Had the race started on time on Sunday, or the time that everybody wanted, we would not have gotten Monday. We would not have gotten Monday. Absolutely not. Because the fact that the rain was pretty much around this race pretty much was what created the double file, everybody going 2x2, 3 wide, everybody being absolutely chaotic. They toned the speeds down just enough to keep the race fun and competitive while keeping the same package. This was just a blast of a race. And then you had field mileage, which is something you never see in 2020 in NASCAR racing because of stage racing.
Yeah.
And you had everybody like, oh, is Johnson going to run out of field? Is Bubba going to run out of field? Is Corey LaJoie going to run out of field? Everybody was questionable. Yeah, Bubba was out of
Bubba
field.
Did run out of fuel. And Corey LaJoie pushed him all the way back to pit road.
I mean, I know we keep mentioning Bubba, but Bubba actually ran out of fuel. Oh, everybody, he didn't know if they can make it. And then Harvick spins Johnson. And you also had Chase Elliott versus Joey Logano round 3. If you want to call it at that, Logano spun around on Chase Elliott. And so, once again, Chase Elliott, or I should say Joey Logano, that's 2 in a row.
Yeah,
friendly
Joey
reminder.
Joey 2, Chase 1.
Well, Joey 2, Chase 1, but remember, 2 weeks in a row, Joey is screwed a driver. The 3rd week, he was dominating and got pretty much what was coming to him. So, I don't think that's going to come at Pocono, but we shall see. Joey has gotten into 2 incidents there, but then you had that finish. First of all, they should have let him race to the line. I was very glad that they did. And who cares about consistency on the last lap? I don't know what that is. It's NASCAR. We've seen inconsistent calls all week. And then you just had that run to the finish. I thought for sure Stenhouse was going to win that. I swear at the line, I thought Stenhouse won that race. But Blaney probably got one back. Blaney was long overdue. He had the 4 races this season that he probably should have won. He should have won Daytona, in my opinion, before, all heck broke loose at that racetrack. So Blaney gets his restrictor plate win, and he's becoming I'm sorry, I'm still going to call it restrictor plates. I am not calling it super speedway. And he's becoming good at it. He's won 2 races, 2 of the last 3. So
yeah.
He's getting very good at this type of race. And I would not be surprised come October, if we're still racing, if he could punch a ticket into the round of 8 through Talladega.
I mean, it should be noted, Ryan Blaney has 4 career wins. 2 of them have come at Talladega. And I mean, yeah, he almost won Daytona. And now I just made a probably really bad connection, because at Talladega last fall, he was pushing Ryan Newman up until they got to the tri-oval, and then Blaney pulled out. At the Daytona 500, he was pushing Ryan Newman, and, well, we know how that ended up. But let's enough about that. But yeah, he's becoming a really good restrictor plate racer, and for Daytona, the next super speedway they go to, I mean, hey, something to look out for. Hal, your thoughts on all of the racing that went on?
That was the best super speedway race I have watched in a long time. Let me just put this out there. If you're watching that race, you tune in, the first thing you're going to notice is that those three Penske cars on the bottom lane are really annoying because they just don't let anybody past them. That was a train. They were a well-oiled machine. All of them found a way to get together at any point in the race, and they'd march to the front. Matt DiBenedetto made it the Penske affiliate for the fourth car in the train, and it was kind of like, how is anybody going to get past these guys? They're so well connected. Their cars are just better aligned than all of the other models and makes. It was just working great for them. Even the Stuart Haas guys could get involved. And then it comes down to fuel mileage, and we're going, well, who can make it to the line? It doesn't matter. We have a caution, and we're going to overtime. None of you can make it. Go to pit road. Some of them don't. Well, good luck. And we get to the two-lap shootout, and it was chaos. It was the purest form of chaos where, no, there's not a massive wreck. There is a wreck, but it's not ginormous. There's just some chaos going around. We had a body check thrown in a NASCAR race. Ryan Blaney body checked Eric Jones. That's the only way I can call it. He slammed him into the boards, basically. I think you get a 5-minute penalty in the NHL for that. And then you got Ricky Stenhouse Jr. You're going, Ricky at the super speedway. That's right, he's here. That's right, he's here. He didn't wreck anybody. Ricky Stenhouse hasn't wrecked anybody. That means he has to win.
Well, does the incident with Almirola count?
I'm not going to give
Not
that.
really.
I mean, Almirola, like you said, went all the way to the bottom.
Yeah, I'm just messing with y'all there.
Almirola has a bad luck with drivers who somehow derp their way into super speedway victories. So put it that way.
Yeah, definitely. Daytona 500 2018. Okay, I'll stop mentioning it. I've mentioned it enough on this show enough. I've mentioned it enough. Yeah. What else was I going to say? I mean, Blaney, he led the most laps. I'm looking at the results now. He led 63 out of the 191 that were run. Joey Logano led 33. Tyler Reddick was actually up front for quite a bit. And let's see, just looking down the rest of the field. Chase Elliott and Austin Dillon crashed together. They got all the Chase fans real up there. Bubba Wallace finished 14th, so attaboy for Bubba on there. And, I mean, yeah, this was really fun event. I mean, we talked about it. We've gone over it in detail. So,
Johnson finished 13th, by the way, after spinning out. I'll want to point that out real quick.
Yeah.
For his comeback.
Yeah. Oh, and Kevin Harvick was leading at the white flag lap. He finished 10th. So a lot of things changed quickly at Talladega and Daytona for that matter. But just some guys that I do want to touch up on this one too. Blaney on Eric Jones. He did what he had to do to win, basically. And it may have been a little dirty, but at the same time, when I looked at it, the first thing that I thought after I saw a replay, I don't think Ryan Blaney knew that Eric Jones and then John Hunter Nemechek too. I don't think he knew that they were 3 wide.
He didn't.
When he went up there.
He clearly did not. And they even said that in his post-race interview. It's final lap, all bets are off. Just don't punt the guy. Yeah. Just don't punt the guy at 200 miles an hour, and we're good.
Yeah. Don't do what Austin Dillon did to win the 500 in 2018. Okay, I'll stop. I mean, what Dillon did was it wasn't so much a punt, but it was like a drive through the guy, which is why I felt so bad for Eric Almirola. Anyway, let's go. And you mentioned Joey versus Chase Elliott round 3. That was something. I do want to talk about another race that happened, not at Talladega, but it happened earlier today. It happened before we were able to go on air tonight. the Pocono General Tire #AnywhereIsPossible 200 at Pocono Raceway. This race was terrible. It was another terrible ARCA race. I mean, in terms of entertainment, it really didn't provide that much. But Ty Gibbs got career win number 3. That is the, if I'm correct, the grandson of Joe Gibbs. So Ty Gibbs gets his 3rd career ARCA victory. And for him, anywhere was victory lane today. Chandler Smith was 2nd, and Sam Mayer was 3rd. Should mention that. But yeah, another ARCA race for Pocono. This is the first race of what will be a 5-race weekend for Pocono. We get 2 races tomorrow and 2 on Sunday. Let's hope that this race is not a precursor for what is to come, although I'm afraid that it might be.
Okay, real quick though, before we leave off, I do have to rant a little bit on the 3 o'clock start times.
Oh my goodness.
And,
complaints and grievances with Justin Farmer.
I hope this is not becoming a theme, but here's the deal. Oh, Talladega should not have started at 3 o'clock on both days. Let us be very honest about that. And again, I've heard the argument and for the prime time deal, and you gotta wait for California. But we're in the pandemic. California could wake up. It's not like people are going to church or on the West Coast at the moment. And it's not like we're waiting for that part. And number 2, Talladega does not have lights. If a track doesn't have lights, you start it at either 1 o'clock or 12 o'clock. Because otherwise, for a track, especially for a track like Talladega, you run the risk of not having it run. If there was another rainstorm, basically, if we had another rainstorm between the 30 laps between the first red flag and the second, in lap 94, we would have had to wait for that race probably till Thursday. We would have had to wait till Thursday, either that or next Tuesday. Hey, that race might not even have been over. So NASCAR, just move it up for tracks that don't have lights. I get it if you want to run Chicagoland at 3 o'clock. I get it if you want to have Homestead at 3 o'clock. But just don't run the tracks without lights at 3 o'clock. That is Dover, Talladega, Pocono, New Hampshire. You can even, and I think I'm missing a couple, but I think I got the gist of them. You can run the Watkins Glen, Sonoma at whatever time you want, because those have rain tires and we're good to go there. Also the Roval. You can't run the Roval on rain tires, unfortunately. But they have lights. So just stop with the 3 o'clocks. Just stop with the 3 o'clocks. That tracks don't have lights. You're just asking for trouble. You're just asking for trouble, and you're probably going to get it at one of these days. Maybe even in this weekend. I don't know.
Yeah, who knows? But yeah, this might be a recurring segment, because last week it was number placement on cars. This week it's
hopefully it's it. Hopefully this is it.
I've got a proposal. Let's just give Talladega some lights. What are you guys doing?
Well,
come on, let's get some lights put up.
As much as I would love it, you gotta ask about how much it's going to cost, and if track owners actually have that kind of money for a track like Talladega. Another thing to keep in mind is Talladega. It's the biggest track that the Cup Series goes to. It's 2 2/3 of a mile, 2 2/3 miles. So, that'd be a lot of money around the track.
It's fine for a track not to have lights if it's over 2 miles. Michigan was the other one I was forgetting. Michigan too.
Well, at the same time though, now you got me thinking, what if NASCAR did a race where they had did a race at a time when they held qualifying for the Cup Series Die Hard 500 in 2000. They didn't have lights. They even had, rumor has it, they had cars in the infield parked that would turn on their headlights to shine some light in the corners, because qualifying got delayed so long that by the time the drivers would go by the front stretch, there was a little bit of light there, and then they go down to turn 1 into almost pure darkness. If you haven't seen it, look it up. It is one of the most incredible things I've seen from a qualifying session. Now I want to shine a spotlight on a few guys. First of all, Drew Dollar, first ARCA win. I mean, hey, tip of the cap on that. Ricky Stenhouse Jr. Not only did he get a second place finish at Talladega on Sunday, but just from what I've seen, this is a really stellar first season for him at JTG Daugherty. It's something that I feel like, and this is probably also due to the fact that it's a new team for him, but he's doing pretty well. I mean, he finished top 5 at Las Vegas. He ran really well at the Daytona 500. He was the pole sitter for that race. What else was there? He got a top 5 at, I think it was Charlotte, one of the races there. Was running well at Bristol until he got wrecked by Jimmy Johnson. And now he gets this finish here. So, I mean, having a great first season. Also, John Hunter Nemechek. There's a lot to say about how well he's doing with Front Row Motorsports. He was almost 3 wide for the win, and he gave Eric Jones that big push. And had they not crashed coming to the line, I think John Hunter Nemechek would have easily gotten a top 3 finish, maybe even a win, because he was having such a big run. Also, Eric Almirola. This is the kind of finish that Almirola needs. No, not to spin across the finish line, but to just get a top 5 and a really strong finish for him. Third is the best finish Almirola's had in a while, and it's something that his team really, really needs because Stuart Haas as a whole, aside from Kevin Harvick, they haven't really been that great. So for Almirola to get a top 5, hey, kudos. Last guy I want to highlight is BJ McLeod. Not for anything on the track, mind you, but just for one really, really awesome look that he had during pre-race. And I am trying to find the image of him pushing Bubba Wallace's car down pit road because that was something. I mean, full mask and everything. He looked incredible, BJ McLeod. And it's unfortunate because now I'm having trouble finding where he was. Oh, hang on. Maybe this will do it. I'll share the screen on it. Yes, I found it. Just look at that. Look at that. Shades, backwards cap, skull, face mask. Shows a guy that you don't want to mess with, basically. So yeah, that's that. Just some guys I wanted to spotlight. Now let's get into some other news involving a driver that was also involved with some controversy earlier this year regarding something related to race. We mentioned Kyle Larson, and we talked about his incident in great detail a couple months ago of how he uttered a racial epithet on an iRacing stream, subsequently lost his ride with Chip Ganassi Racing, and went through racial sensitivity training. Well, now he's back in the World of Outlaws and sprint car racing circuit, and he is ballin'. And by ballin', I mean he is just hauling the mail, winning about every race there is to win on the circuit right now. It's gotten to a point where Tony Stewart, who himself, I believe, owns a sprint car team and is very actively involved with sprint car racing, Tony Stewart said that he wants to hire Kyle Larson to drive for him. Well, that's certainly a vote of confidence for him. I'll save my piece for a little bit later. I'll start with Hallie's step on this. The thoughts on Tony Stewart wanting Kyle Larson to drive for him?
I mean, in a way, I'm not completely surprised. I mean, if there was a guy I would say would take a chance on Kyle Larson because of how good of a driver he is, I think Tony Stewart's that guy. I mean, Tony Stewart, completely different. He is no stranger to having some controversy, especially on the track with some drivers where he's going to mouth off to him. He's going to tell them, you drive me like that, well, I'm going to do some not so sponsorly friendly things, might wreck you. That's Tony Stewart. He doesn't take anything on the track, and that's not usually a friendly attitude. And I think, in a way, that kind of makes him look at guys with a controversial past. This is completely different. He might be more willing to give them a chance because of how good of drivers there are. Because no one ever turned Tony Stewart away because of his attitude. No one turned him away for how he handled himself or how he might anger somebody. If Kyle Larson has changed, I think Tony Stewart would be the guy to give him that chance, because Tony knows you got to give drivers a chance. Sometimes there is a horrible mistake made. If you change, you need a second chance. And if you threw a guy out for everything, for bad attitude, for something like many of the things Tony Stewart carried himself on the track with, Tony wouldn't have gotten a shot. So I think Tony, I'm not shocked it's him. And quite frankly, that's a good thing, that a second chance is given for how good of a driver you are. Now, I still want to see some more time put in before I'm willing to say he's changed and I'm accepting him right back into NASCAR, into the sport. But he's showing that I'll be honest, I think the incident lit a fire under Kyle Larson, which is why you're seeing him just dominate. Also, he's much more skilled than a lot of the guys, but that, again, adds to the point.
Yeah. Justin, your take overall on your favorite driver, Tony Stewart, what he wants out of Kyle Larson.
Well, previously I've referred to Stewart-Haas Racing as the animal shelter of NASCAR. They are known as the animal shelter of NASCAR because they pretty much take in and drivers who have either had mistreatment from other teams or have basically been due to anger issues or anything like that. I mean, they have basically saved Clint Boyer, Kurt Busch, Kevin Harvick, Eric Almirola, Ryan Newman, and to a degree, pretty much every single driver they have taken in, except for Danica Patrick and Cole Custer, has kind of been quote unquote rescued. And this would not surprise me one bit if Kyle Larson was the next person taken in to Stewart-Haas Racing. Now, from a talent perspective only, this would be a great move for Stewart-Haas Racing. I think Tony has been itching to get Kyle Larson in his ride for about 5 years now. He has wanted Kyle Larson, and the only reason why he could never get Kyle Larson was because Chip Ganassi had him under contract. Heck, Tony has wanted Kyle Larson. They are good friends. They are very good friends on and off the racetrack. Heck, from a PR standpoint, Stewart-Haas is pretty much, I would believe, the only team that could take a hit like this. Stewart-Haas is the only team that has gone out to bat before and has the PR or that can get Kyle Larson inside a Cup ride. Hey, do they have the driver capacity for it? Well, it obviously depends on what Chase Briscoe does and what they want to do with Chase Briscoe. I think they're going to give him another year, or just because that's what they did with Cole Custer. But at Clint Boyer's contract is expiring. Eric Almirola's contract is expiring. I know Eric Almirola's the money car, and most likely Eric Almirola would stay. But Clint Boyer doing a ton of more races for Fox. He's doing a lot more Xfinity broadcasts this year. He's being a lot more involved in the booth. Could we see Clint Boyer go out of the 14? I could absolutely see that. From Kyle Larson bettering himself. I mean, I don't want to say it, and I don't want to, make a premature judgment on this. But Kyle Larson is making strides to better himself. we have seen him doing a lot of volunteer work, not from any of his social media accounts because those got deleted. We're seeing it from a lot of other social media accounts. He's volunteering a lot. He even went up to Minneapolis as the place where or the George Floyd was tragically killed. He was there for a memorial service. I believe a week ago. Oh, I don't know the specifics on that. I mean, obviously, Kyle Larson is at least making an effort to get back. And I hope he is genuinely taking this seriously to try and better himself as a person. And I do believe in second chances. Where the three biggest as exit question marks come. Number one, then is Gene Haas willing to give him the ride? Because we obviously have seen at SHR, Gene Haas is the one who makes the final call. Tony may request a bunch of guys. Tony wanted to keep Daniel Suarez. He really wanted to keep Daniel Suarez, and Gene made the decision to move up Custer. So we know for a fact that Stewart is not the one who makes the hiring decisions. That's Gene Haas. Number two, are sponsors willing to come on? And it ties into number three. Is NASCAR ready for Kyle Larson to come back? Especially now. Especially now with all that's been going on, with all the controversies in the past 4 weeks. He's with the fan base, with social media, with Bubba Wallace, everything. Is NASCAR ready for Kyle Larson to come back this early? I would say a Gene Haas would be willing, but I don't think those last two would work out well unless unless they get Cole Custer some sponsorship, and then Gene would sponsor the 14 instead of the 41. But I don't think that's going to happen. So I think Kyle Larson will eventually get back into NASCAR's Cup Series if he wants to. I just don't think it's going to be 2021. Now, if things die down, if things start to de-escalate here and around the country, I could see Kyle Larson having an option to come back in 2022. So maybe if Clint Boyer does a 1-year deal, says this is my retirement tour and then I'm done. If you give Kyle Larson 1 more year to go drive dirt, do whatever races he wants to do, terrorize the dirt guys like he's Kyle Busch on steroids. Let him do it for 1 year and give him the 8-figure salary that he deserves. He deserves talent-wise. He deserves talent-wise, not personality-wise. And then go win some races because Stuart Haas is in desperate need of talented drivers. Because right now, Cole Custer is not performing. Eric Almirola, Stamani Carr, and Clint Boyer is definitely past his prime.
Yeah, I'll start with this. Kyle Larson, I just checked on Twitter to see if his account's still there, to which the answer, surprisingly, is yes. His racing account's still there. However, he has not put anything out since the incident happened. He's been very quiet on social media. I don't even think he's putting anything out there on social media. And I do want to share these pictures here because it shows me that Kyle Larson, he completed racial sensitivity training and he's back doing racing in sprint cars. But this is him at one of the memorials for George Floyd. This is up in Minneapolis. And then here, oh man, it gets cut off. But if I can get the picture back, there he is again. So to me, this shows that he's putting in the work. And I do want to mention, he did not share any of this with the public, with any media, with any race fans. This was just something that he did. and he didn't put anything out there. This was from I'm sorry if I butcher the name of this, the Sani Foundation, the Sane Foundation. This was from their page that they put out. So from what I can tell, Kyle Larson, he's putting in the work. He is genuinely making an effort to better himself. And that, I think, is the key that needs to happen. Because that way, he is learning from where he went wrong back in April. And now he's doing what he can to try to get back into the sport of NASCAR. And it's obvious that Tony Stewart wants him on the team. I don't blame Tony at all. Kyle is one heck of a wheelman. But the question I got to ask is, does Kyle really care enough to come back into NASCAR? I mean, he loves dirt racing. It's his pride and joy. It's pretty clear. We'll make that for sure. But NASCAR, I mean, yeah, he makes a lot of money from it. I feel like that would go to financing his team. Does he care enough to come back into NASCAR? I'm not sure. I'm not 100% sure. I think if given the chance, Kyle Larson would come back, but I'm not 100% sure, because dirt racing is clearly his passion. That's clearly what he loves to do. It's obvious. And the fact that he's been tearing it up out there shows how driven, how determined he is there. Now, to get back into NASCAR with a top drive, I think, here's the thing. If he gets back into NASCAR, the first thing he'll have to do, because I don't think he'll be able to run a full season schedule right away coming back. I think if I'm Tony Stewart in this situation and Gene Haas, I put Kyle Larson on a partial Xfinity schedule. Get some races there to start with. Maybe run maybe 15, 16 races. If he does really well in those races, then put him in a full-time Xfinity ride. Maybe run a fifth car for select Cup races. And if he tears it up in Xfinity, get him back in the Cup Series for the year after that. Now, when that happens, even if that happens, but when this would happen, if it does happen, I'm not sure. I would think 2021, if we're looking at a partial Xfinity schedule, I mean, if Kyle continues to put in the effort and he goes back and he decides he wants to go back into NASCAR, I think 2021 could be realistic for at least a partial Xfinity schedule, if that's the case. But again, I'm just not sure, because he loves dirt racing. NASCAR, he showed speed, but does he really want to get back into it? That's the question that I have in my mind. And I'm not sure I have the answer for that.
Answer is money. The answer is pretty clear. Money is going to be a big factor in all this, whether that's sponsorship, whether that's how much Gene Haas is willing to pay up, and whether how much Kyle Larson needs the money. How much does Kyle Larson need to keep going? And again, and could we see a Kyle Larson come back? Absolutely. I'm just not sure it's going to be a 2021. And now it's part-time Xfinity. Oh yeah, fifth car or in the Cup Series on a part-time schedule. That's impossible unless you barter NASCAR into getting rid of the 5-car rule.
Yeah. I'm just still questioning. I mean, Kyle Larson, does he want to come back? And if he does come back, it will likely be about money and how much money will be thrown at him. So
now, how much money would he need to go to a certain team that is in the number 50? Have we heard anything about the money team as of late?
Quite frankly, I think they'd be looking at Columbia native Carl Edwards first, since these are two people, a team and a person who I will never see on a NASCAR track, as far as I know, ever again.
So
As
unfortunate.
as far as I know, I was gonna pull it up because, quite frankly, I don't think they actually. Nope. Yep. Same thing from last week. Yep. They have nothing. Yeah, it is. As is tradition, they have nothing for me. I'm sure Floyd Mayweather is just sweeping the entire globe looking for a driver for that number 50 car that he knows will get in there and win every single race, because Floyd Mayweather doesn't like losing because he doesn't know what it's like.
Sweeping the globe.
Sure.
Lord knows where he might be going.
Maybe we'll put Manny Pacquiao in the car. I don't know.
Oh, that is something to watch, but I don't know.
Boy.
That'd be bad. Well, I guess that was the Money Team Minute with Hal Step. And yes, we changed the name because usually the news about them takes under a minute now.
Yeah.
So all right. I mean, we got that out of the way. Now, oh man, we're shifting into another serious topic that I've got listed. Sorry for the really heavy show tonight, everyone, but this is just something that we need to talk about. Not in detail, but I'll just give an update. Last Friday, Alex Zanardi, the two-time kart champion and multiple-time race winner, and also a multiple gold medal winner from the Paralympic Games for Italy. Alex Zanardi was involved in a handbike accident last Friday in Italy. He suffered a severe head injury and went through neurosurgery. And last we had heard before the show last week was that he was in the ICU. Now the most recent update on Zanardi is that he has been put in a medically induced coma. After his accident, he will remain in that coma until at least next week. So if that doesn't, that conveys the severity of Zanardi's injury. Now, one source that I did check is that some doctors have said that Zanardi's injury to his head is not as severe as the injury suffered by Michael Schumacher, the seven-time F1 champion, when Schumacher was injured in a skiing accident in 2013. However, with head injuries, it's important to know just how serious the situation is. So Zanardi is in a medically induced coma right now. Pope Francis of the Roman Catholic Church, Pope Francis, he penned an open letter to Alex Zanardi, and I was able to get the full text of the letter, and in fact, I'll read it now. It reads as such: "Dearest Alessandro," that's Zanardi's birth name, Italian birth name, "your story is an example of how to start again after an unforeseen stop. Through sport, you have taught us to live life as a protagonist, teaching a lesson of humanity through disability. Thank you for having given strength to those who have lost it. In this painful moment, I am close to you and I pray for you and your family. Fraternally, Pope Francis." So, I mean, when you have the support of Pope Francis, obviously it's important, it's huge, but it's important to know Zanardi has a lot of support from just the entire motorsports community. Zanardi prevailed through a devastating accident where he lost both of his legs in 2001, and now he's in a very serious fight here. I think it's Zanardi. He's got enough strength in him to prevail, I would hope. Fingers crossed that happens. So, with the Zanardi news being said, let's look at some other news that has been sprung up around the motorsports community. IMS, the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, announced today that the Indy 500 is expected to be run with 50% capacity. Ooh, excuse me, my voice cracked real bad there. Sorry. But 50% capacity at Indianapolis. If I'm correct, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe the IMS capacity for the Indianapolis Motor Speedway is seating capacity is 230,000 people. I could be wrong on that, though.
Indy 500 is like 300,000 usually.
Yeah, so I would expect to get, I wouldn't know the specific numbers, but I would say somewhere between like 115 to 150,000. In fact, the capacity for what it says here, permanent seats just over 250,000. For a grand total for the Brickyard, it's 400,000. So they're looking at 50% capacity. It won't be as much as the Indy 500 usually sells out at, but it's still something significant, and it shows that they're willing to put on a show with some fans there, which is good because, I mean, the 500, to me at least, it just isn't the same without some fans there. Moving on to a little bit of F1 news, Rocket, the drink manufacturer based in the UK, they announced earlier, a few weeks ago, that they were leaving the Williams F1 team, which, by the way, Williams came out with their new 2020 paint scheme for their cars this year, and it actually looks really, really good. And in fact, I think it looks better than the Rocket scheme that they had for this year. But Rocket is staying in Formula One with Mercedes, a powerhouse. Cue the Imperial March. They are leaving, perhaps and it's unfortunate, the slowest team right now in Formula One, and going to one of, if not the fastest. Power move for Rocket. Now back to the NASCAR side. In fact, all of these next headlines are NASCAR. Angela Ruck. Yes, that Angela Ruck that we see a lot on Twitter, and her husband, Mike Ruck, him too. But Angela is out from the 00 truck this weekend due to sponsorship issues. And in fact, the team owner for that truck, Josh Rayome, will be taking over that seat starting this weekend at Pocono. This is in the NASCAR Gander RV and Outdoors Truck Series. Angela Ruck out of the 00 truck. Sponsorship reasons. Well,
I wonder what those are. Turns out you're not that marketable when you talk that much on Twitter with many expletives.
Yeah. Still remember that tweet after the Parker Kligerman reply. Ooh, that was something.
Who am I going to listen to now when I'm watching the truck race tomorrow?
Gee, I don't know. Okay, also related to the NASCAR Truck Series, this one is actually really unfortunate. It involves Natalie Decker, but she will be out. She was supposed to take part in the race for Nice Motorsports this weekend, but she will not be in the truck after some complications involved with bile ducts after gallbladder surgery that she had at the end of last year. In fact, I've got the full release. This was from her website. Natalie Decker has been hospitalized since last Tuesday, June 23rd, with bile duct complications related to her gallbladder removal back in December. She will be unable to participate as the medical team is still treating her. And I will have a look at the entry list to see who is taking over for her this weekend, because she was supposed to drive at Pocono. However, because of her medical situation, that will not be the case. Looking car 44. It looks like Bailey Curry will be in the car this weekend. Yes, it's Bailey Curry.
Not a bad pick. I've been looking forward to seeing him and some higher tier equipment, so this should be a good substitute.
Yeah, and like we did for Alex Zanardi, we wish Natalie Decker the best in this. Obviously, with medical situations, it's never a good thing to hear about if something terrible is going on. So we wish Natalie Decker the best, and we wish her a speedy recovery. Now on to the Xfinity Series. Ryan Vargas, who made a few starts for JD Motorsports last year in the Xfinity Series, it was announced that he will be back with JD Motorsports to run several races for them in the Xfinity Series this season. Vargas, young driver from Las Vegas, part of the Drive for Diversity program and the NASCAR Next program. I mean, hey, good to see him getting some more runs. I mean, he ran pretty well considering the equipment that he was in last year.
Yeah, not bad.
All right, so Vargas running more races. Something that kind of ties in with everything that's been happening in terms of social change regarding the last couple of weeks. Ricky Stenhouse and Tommy Joe Martins, two drivers in NASCAR from Mississippi, they announced that they had removed the Mississippi state flag from their belts after the controversy around the Confederate flag. Just something noteworthy that I felt deserves a little bit of attention. And, oh man, more bad news. Again, sorry everybody, but COVID-19, it has taken its toll on some people, even in the NASCAR community. What was it, a couple weeks ago or last week, Justin?
Last week we broke the news. It was live here on the show of the SHR employees.
Mm-hmm.
Penske has also announced one employee of theirs had tested positive for coronavirus, as well as Dale Jarrett and Alan Bestwick.
That's right.
We definitely want to wish them the best. Actually, Alan Bestwick had his much earlier on this year.
Yeah.
But we still want to wish each of them and every single employee of NASCAR their safety during this time. And hopefully they can come back to the racetrack or the shop. And hopefully we do not have any more, or we keep this contained, because right now, it's definitely some scary numbers coming outside of other sports.
Yeah. I mean, Team Penske, they had the one employee who was diagnosed with it. Dale Jarrett, I think it was, I forgot to mention it last week because I know he had it by this time last week, but it was a couple weeks ago. Dale Jarrett had announced on one of the NASCAR NBC programs that he had been diagnosed with COVID-19. He was experiencing mild symptoms at the time. And as for Alan Bestwick, this dates back from earlier this month. He kept it really, really quiet. But earlier this month, he put out on Twitter that he himself had COVID-19 around the time that the outbreak really took off in the United States. So Bestwick, it appears by now, has recovered. But again, we want to wish everyone that they stay safe, that they do what is necessary. And even in the state of Missouri, cases are on the rise. So just say a prayer and some fingers crossed, especially for some essential workers that have to work in these grocery stores. I mean, I'm fine, but just keep them in mind and keep others in your mind when you do this. Last bit of news that I want to talk about, Justin Haley, he won his first career Xfinity race this past weekend at Talladega, and he also got another win in a different sense because of his victory. Yes, he won the Cup race at Daytona in July last year, and before you ask, yes, that does qualify him for the All-Star race. And don't worry, yes, he will be running it with Spire Motorsports. Yes, that's Spire Motorsports. Justin Haley will be running the All-Star race for Spire Motorsports at Bristol. It was confirmed a few days ago. So, I mean, he's got a ride there. And also, he's one of the few drivers now that has won a race in all three touring series, Cup, Xfinity, and Truck Series.
Hopefully that's not the last win we will see Justin Haley at any Cup racetrack on the circuit. I'm hoping that, though, I gotta ask, is this going to be connected with Chip Ganassi, or is Spire going to be pretty much walloped by the field, to say the least?
I think they're going to get walloped either way. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah, let's be honest. Even if sorry, I'm plugging in my laptop, but even if Ganassi is affiliated with Spire, they have a shot at super speedways, and that's about it. I'm just saying that outright. So yeah, that's all the other news that happened. Now let's get into some gas and go. We're going to start this first question with Hal Estep, and don't worry, I have the cowbell.
Oh boy.
The big bell with me. So let's start with Hal Estep. We'll talk about this I better get the timer set because I'll give a minute total, 30 seconds for both of you. So let's start with this. Hal, the most impressive and disappointing driver, so you give me two names. Who has been the most impressive and who has been the most disappointing in the Cup Series thus far?
We've gone on about him a lot, but John Hunter Nemechek is my most impressive driver. I mean, we've said it many times. The equipment he's in and the performances he's giving out are just incredibly impressive. I will not say Quinn Howe for most disappointing. That would imply I was disappointed and had any expectations in the first place. I still say Cole Custer. He had a good run at Talladega, but still, he's my most disappointing driver.
I would say I would have to agree with you on my most impressive driver, John Hunter Nemechek. What can we say? We've discussed it week after week on him, but my most disappointing, I got to go with Eric Jones. I thought we were really going to see something out of him this year. And he's 17th in points. I know he's had some bad luck, and I know he heats up in the summer, but this is not how you get an extension at JGR. This is what happens to Daniel Suarez. You get kicked.
Yeah. And also, speaking of Daniel Suarez, it's just really, really bad to see him over at Gaunt Brothers. I mean, given the equipment just isn't there, but it's just sad, especially considering where he was at this point last year. Justin, I'll start with you on this next one. We'll go back and forth. So the second question that I want to ask is, out of the drivers who have not won a race in the Cup Series this season, in your mind, who out of the non-race winners thus far are safe from the cutoff line?
I mean, Kyle Busch, Kurt Busch are the only two I would say that are safe. I would say everybody from 11th on 20 all the way down to 20th, if they have a shot to race their way in. And I don't see I see a lot of these drivers being kind of safe, but we need to get further down the stretch for me to call them safe.
I'm going to say the Busch brothers as well because, Kyle Busch is not missing the playoffs no matter what. I will not hear it. Kurt Busch is talented enough, 10th place, far above the rest. I'm going to put Jimmy Johnson in there too because he's just had impressive runs, just always an unfortunate ending. It's not like the last few years where it's been middle of the pack. He's had those top 10 runs and nearly been in it at the end. I think he'll be safe.
All right. Again, beat the cowbell that I've got. Anyway, Hal, back to you on this. We've talked about Richard Childress Racing. They've shown a lot of speed at this point of the year. I got to ask you, out of their two drivers that they've got, Austin Dillon and Tyler Reddick, does one of them get into the playoffs for 2020?
Yes, and it will be Tyler Reddick. I will stop my shaming of Austin Dillon because he keeps coming in with these impressive runs. Granted, the bad luck of running into Chase Elliott on the backstretch. He's had good runs, but it will be Tyler Reddick who makes the playoffs because he's just more consistent.
I think Tyler Reddick has a shot at it. Honestly, I think it's going to come down to either him or Eric Jones, and it's a top dog versus an underdog. I'm still leaning Eric Jones for some reason. I just cannot see him doing this bad over the summer stretch. Now that we're into pretty much the grind of the year, Eric Jones does very well at these types of racetracks. I just cannot see Tyler Reddick making it. Unless Tyler Reddick does better than Jones, I just cannot see it just yet.
Well, it'll be interesting to see how the summer stretch pulls out because the tracks that they're going to, for the most part, they're going to be jumbled around, to say the least, given how everything's been forced to be rescheduled because of the pandemic. But, Tyler Reddick, he's 16th in the points right now, so he holds the last spot. He holds that last spot by 1 point over Eric Jones right now. Tyler Reddick is 16th, Eric Jones 17th. Austin Dillon is 18th. He's pretty well back. He's 24 points behind Tyler Reddick in the points.
Still doable.
Anything can happen. We're halfway through the regular season. Anything can still happen at this point. We've had a pandemic, so there's that. Justin, I have to ask, in your mind, which Cup Series driver needs a win the most at this point?
It's obviously Kyle Busch. Gosh, I will hear no arguments otherwise. Ace, maybe you could throw in there Jimmy Johnson, but Kyle Busch has gone 13 races without a win. And who would have thought you would be saying Kyle Busch would not have a win by the time we ended the month of June? That is absolutely ridiculous. Kyle Busch needs it. He desperately needs it if he wants to get back into this title contention hunt, because right now he is well out of it.
I'm going to say William Byron not only needs a win, he also needs to just get a top 5. He has none on the year. William Byron, we've been just waiting for him to break out, and it just hasn't happened. At some point, you have to get in that 24 car and live up to that number, and he hasn't done it yet, and he's still sitting there on the border of the playoffs. He needs a win. He needs it.
Yep. Oh, crap. I just deleted my timer that I had. But yeah, William Byron, I would say he just needs to get a good run. I mean, 4 top 5s at this point of the year, considering how he finished last season, we really expected much more out of him this season, especially given it's his second year with Chad Knaus. And as for Kyle Busch, he's got to win. I mean, we're used to seeing Kyle Busch win. He's been tearing it up in trucks, that's for sure. And one Xfinity race, nothing in Cup so far.
He has not done well in trucks or Xfinity this year either.
Yeah, just not entirely. So, well, hopefully for Kyle, he's able to do something this weekend.
How much of that truck and Xfinity is that on? How much of that is on me for picking him? I feel like I may have cursed him down there.
Well, I'm not sure.
Maybe it's just him. I might not have had anything to do with it.
Well, I mean, you got Justin Haley right this past weekend, and Justin, you picked Ryan Blaney for the last weekend, right? For Talladega.
For Talladega, I went with the wheel, and the wheel said Clint Boyer.
Oh, that's right.
So I was 2 ticks off.
All right. Well, anyway, enough about last week's picks. Hal, back to you on this one. Just halfway through the regular season that we've seen from the Cup Series, in your mind, who right now is your favorite to win the Cup Series championship?
Now, the popular pick would be the wins leader, the guy everyone says should have a championship by now, and this is a make-or-break year every time, Denny Hamlin. I can't say it's him. I can't see him as a favorite when I'm not convinced he can win the big one. So I'm going to go and say the points leader, Kevin Harvick, because he always finds a way into that Final Four.
Well, I'm going to do an addition by subtraction here. I mean, anybody who doesn't have a win at this point, I am not considering for a title. So Alex Bowman needs to win. I mean, needs to lose one before he can win one, and that means get to the round of 8. Martin Truex Jr., I don't think they're connected. And crew chief wise, Brad Keselowski always chokes in the second round. Chase Elliott can't get to the Final Four and needs to get to the Final Four before he can even be considered a title contender. Ryan Blaney, too young, needs to lose one to win one. So that leaves me with Joey Logano, Kevin Harvick, and Denny Hamlin. I think it's going to be Logano.
Logano, all right. So let's see. If I just had to pick one, and Hal brought up Kevin Harvick. Now I'm just going through his statistics with Harvick. I think it can't be stressed enough. Harvick has consistently been one of the most consistent drivers out there. And he's really gone under the radar, I feel like, at times. Ever since 2013, Kevin Harvick's number of top 10s has been in the 20s. That's over half the season. I mean, he's finished at like 372 top 10s in his career in 695 starts in the Cup Series. I mean, he's set to finish in the top 10 over half of his races in the Cup Series.
Free bloomin' onions.
Bloomin' onions every Monday at Outback. Yeah. Fun story. I've actually never been to Outback, but that's a story for another time. Let's see. Let's go back here. Justin, you'll start on this last question of Gas and Go. Actually, this will. I don't even think I'll need the timer. One word to describe this season.
Important.
Okay. Hal.
I'll give it hectic.
I'll let's see. One word to describe this season. I don't know. Like if I had to boil it down into one word. Hey, you two came up with this so easy. Now I've got to think of one. There's a lot of words that come to mind. Actually, no. Hang on. Let me say this. 2020. What? I mean, and even the season. Just what? Just it's so chaotic too. Chaotic's another word, but yeah, that sums up everything. That sums up Gas and Go. Now, before I lose my mind even more, let's get into some picks, shall we?
Melting his mind.
Yep. Let's start with the truck race. Let's go ahead and start with that. The Pocono Organics 150. That will be tomorrow. I might be tomorrow morning because it will happen before the first Cup race of the weekend. And I'll go ahead and get the starting lineup for that race right now. I'll go ahead and share the screen for it. And there we go. So here it is, the Pocono Organics 150 to benefit Farm Aid at Pocono Raceway. Johnny Sauter drew the pole for this race in the Thor Sport number 13. So he will be on the pole. Sheldon Creed for GMS Racing, the highest starting Chevy. Austin Hill and Christian Eckes, 2 Toyotas in row 2. Going down the rest of the top 10, you have Grant Enfinger, who won the last race of that, or no, he didn't win the last race, but he won in Atlanta. Ben Rhodes, Zane Smith, Todd Gilliland, Brett Moffitt, and Brandon Jones, who will be running in the KBM 51 this weekend. Just going down the list, other noteworthy drivers, Chase Purdy, one of the former ARCA stalwart driving for GMS Racing in the 24 truck. As we go down the rest of the grid here, Bailey Curry driving for Nice Motorsports. That's in place of Natalie Decker. Jesse Iwuji will be driving the 33 truck. Let's see, going down further. That's about it. Oh, Ray Cicerelli is in the 49 truck.
Oh,
that's all I'm going to say about that. And Parker Kligerman is running this race in the 75. So 40 trucks for Pocono Raceway, 150 miles, 60 laps. That's 20 laps shorter than the ARCA race that was held earlier today, if you can believe that. Tell you what, let's start, because he is the ultimate grandmaster when it comes to these picks and cursing them. Hal, you're going to start. You got Justin Haley right, so we're starting with you.
What poor driver are you going to send out there to go lose now? Oh, gosh. Okay.
Hey, it worked for Justin.
It worked for Justin Haley because Talladega is a cursed racetrack. My brain is saying to go with Ross Chastain because he won last year. Every time I go with my brain and not with my gut, I usually get it wrong. My gut has got it right once, so I mean, it's not really that great. But I'm going to go with Christian Eckes. I just feel like he's finally going to put the run together and go get his first win in the Truck Series. He's an impressive young driver, and quite frankly, I just think he can get it done.
All right, Justin Palmer, your pick.
I think it's going to belong to a Toyota, but it's not going to be a Christian Eckes, although I'm really tempted to pick him. I'm going with Austin Hill. That's just a name that jumps out to me. Toyotas dominate this track in terms of the Truck Series. I know Ross Chastain won last year, but the trucks are king at Pocono. Not the trucks. The Toyota trucks are king at Pocono. Good grief. Although, to be fair, the trucks might actually be the best race out of the weekend. So
might be the only race.
Oof.
Oh, that's right, because it is supposed to rain tomorrow in Pocono. It's an 80% chance of rain.
Not before, or it comes later in the day. So I think we might get this one in. I think we might.
All right. Okay, so we have one pick for Christian Eckes, one pick for Austin Hill. Let's see. For my pick, tell you what, I think this is strange because if I'm Ross Chastain, he did win the Pocono race last year, but I gotta think who. I don't know. I mean, it feels like because I'm gonna try to stray away from just piggybacking off of someone else's pick. I think I'm gonna go with Grant Enfinger, just because Enfinger is the type of driver who is really consistent. He'll be up near the front, and he tends to pounce when you least expect it. He won at Daytona. He won at Atlanta. And in my mind, I'll admit, I don't think I've given Grant enough credit for how good he can run run in the truck series, because he can run really well. He went winless last year, which was surprising, but he's gotten 2 wins this year. I feel like he can make it 3. So I'm going to pick Grant Enfinger to win. So 3, 4, and 5, the starting grid, those are the picks for the truck series race. Now,
Actually, I just double checked the weather, and it is getting a lot worse. As for the 11 o'clock time slot, I am starting to believe we will not get this race in and tomorrow.
No. Well, that sucks. Anyway, just in case it happens, we've already made our picks. And in case the Xfinity race happens on Sunday, we will also make our picks. I'll hold off on the Cup Series for now because I want to go one series at a time. So let's go ahead and start with the Pocono Green 225. This is somewhat shortened from last year. Instead of 100 laps, it'll be 90 laps, hence the 225 instead of 250. Noah Gragson will start on the pole for this event with Myatt Snyder on the outside of the front row. That's 2 Chevys. Snyder back in the RCR 21 this weekend. Chase Briscoe, the highest starting Ford for Stuart Haas in 3rd, along with Gragson's JR Motorsports teammate Justin Allgaier in 4th, and Ross Chastain, the first of the colleague drivers. In fact, it's an all-colleague row 3 with Chastain and last week's winner Justin Haley. The rest of the top 10, Brandon Jones in the highest starting Toyota, if you can believe that, Daniel Hemrick in 8th, Austin Cindric, and Harrison Burton rounding out the top 10. Any other notable starters? Jeffrey Earnhardt is going to be driving in the 0 car for JD Motorsports. Ray Black Jr. has actually left NASCAR momentarily, so he is no longer driving the 07. Carson Ware, I believe the younger brother of Cody Ware, is driving the 07. He has been driving the 07 since Xfinity Series came back from the pandemic. In case I hadn't cleared that up, Ryan Vargas will be making his first start of the year for JD, driving the number 15. He'll start 17th. Brett Moffitt had a really good run for Our Motorsports. Dexter Bean, that's a name I haven't heard in a while. He'll be starting 20th, driving for, I believe that's Go Green Racing. I could be wrong. Brandon Brown has had some really solid runs. He's starting 22nd. Riley Herbst, 24th. He'll have a long way to go from the back of the grid. And 36 cars on the starting grid from what we can tell. No driver changes. So this is for the Xfinity race on Sunday. Hal Eastuff, we'll start with you. Who ends up victorious at the Tricky Triangle?
Tell you what, it won't be the car coming from 24th. That's going to be a long day. I'm going to go, oh boy. It's a lot tougher when it's like a normal track where you can't have a random winner. I'm going to go with, let's go with Justin Allgaier. He is due. I mean, he might, I'm not going to say he's going to push Noah Gragson out of the way, but I'm going to say that he wouldn't hesitate to do it if he had to.
All right. Justin, your pick.
Well, I'm on the Toyota spree, and I would have picked Gibbs for the ARCA array, so I might as well keep that trend going. And you know what? This is going to tick off NASCAR Reddit, but I don't care. Brandon Jones owns. Once again, it is Toyota country. This track belongs to the Toyotas. As a Toyota is going to win in the Xfinity Series. Give me Brandon Jones. What the heck?
Well, all right then. I've got to remind myself as to who won this race last year. because I feel
Cole
like
Custer.
that could help influence who I pick. Okay, Cole Custer won this race last year, driving for Stuart Haas. Let's see if I have to pick somebody here. Actually, I don't know why I keep saying that because I'm gonna have to pick somebody eventually.
Yeah.
I'm sorry if I keep annoying y'all with that, but let's see. I just noticed Chevy's in 11 through 23. Yeah, not a lot of Toyotas in the field, but okay. I think for my pick, I am going to stray away from the Toyota bunch because there's so few Toyotas there that I think they're just outnumbered right now. They're going to be fast, but I think there's somebody who can be a little faster. And in fact, I think it's going to be someone who hasn't been to victory lane this season. I'm going to pick the Melon Man, Ross Chastain. The Colleague Racing crew, the whole team has shown a lot of speed just in the last few weeks. And it's clear that they've got – Justin Haley can run really, really well. If he keeps going at this rate, he's going to be a title contender. I think Ross Chastain, for him, a second-place run at Talladega, just some overall consistent runs. He's getting better as the season goes on. He led over a quarter of the race at Charlotte, which, given it's not that similar of a track, but it's still a pretty fast track. I think Chastain, he's got the speed, he's got the talent, and he's got enough drive behind him. I feel like this is a weekend that Chastain can put up a tally in the win column for the Xfinity Series season. So that's my pick. I'm taking Ross Chastain. So we've got one for Justin Allgaier, one for Ross Chastain, and one for Brandon Jones. Good luck, Justin. So we got those out of the way. Now let us look at the Cup Series grid. We'll start with the first race of the weekend, the Pocono Organics 325. Now, I noticed that the Cup Series actually renamed these events before this weekend. This was supposed to be known as the Kids Free 325. However, considering there will be nobody at these races, I should say, nobody in attendance for the race at Pocono. So Kids Free was kind of pointless.
Moron.
Yeah. So Pocono Organics 325. Eric Almirola won the pole for this race. Last week's winner, Ryan Blaney, will start on the outside. It's an all-Ford front row. Then all Toyotas in the second row with the JGR guys, Denny Hamlin and Kyle Busch. Chase Elliott, the highest starting Chevy, in fifth. And I just noticed who's starting alongside him. Oh, Joey Logano's there. It's going to be round 4, I bet, at some point. Rest of the top 10, Kurt Busch, Brad Keselowski, Kevin Harvick, and Alex Bowman. Other notable guys, Martin Truex Jr. has won here in the past. He's starting 11th. Jimmy Johnson in 12th. Newman and Stenhouse in positions 13, 14. Tyler Reddick, the highest starting rookie, in 15th. Then you go further down the grid, John Hunter Nemechek in 20th. Bubba Wallace in 23rd. Going down the rest of the grid, you got James Davison will be making his Cup Series debut for Spire Motorsports. It was supposed to be last weekend, but BJ McLeod took his place. Davison will be starting 35th, just ahead of Christopher Bell and Daniel Suarez. 40 cars on the grid. Hal, we're going to start with you again. It's the tricky triangle where they ask what turn 4. There is no turn 4 at Pocono. Who prevails on the triangle at Pocono for at least the first race?
Well, as Justin said, Toyotas rule this place, and there's 2 of them starting 3rd and 4th, and it's a hard pick between one of those 2. Unfortunately, I am just going to abstain from picking Kyle Busch because I've done enough to that man and his winning this season. I'm going to pick Denny Hamlin go get his 4th win of the year at Pocono.
Interesting. Denny Hamlin, he's won at Pocono several times in the past. I'm trying to remember the last time he won there.
Last race there.
What's that?
It was the last race there.
Oh, yeah, that's right. I keep forgetting who's won on what, but I know even when he first got into the series, Pocono was his track. I mean, he swept both races there in his rookie year. He won again in 2009 and then once in 2010 and now even once last year. So Hamlin, good pick for this weekend. Justin, your pick for the 325 mile race. It is 130 laps, I should mention.
I love how you kept avoiding Saturday because you knew I was going to pick Jet Dryer number 12 for Saturday. Hey, but since I have to pick the 325, I will oblige. Hey, unfortunately, whenever you abstain from Kyle Busch, I just love picking Kyle Busch. And I was going to pick him anyways, whether or not you decided to pick Kyle Busch or not. I'm going to pick Kyle Busch, and I now know he's going to win this race. Because remember, I said it back at the beginning of June. We were going to have three wins this month for Toyota. We were going to have 3. June 7th was Martin Truex Jr. June 14th was Denny Hamlin. June 28th will be Kyle Busch.
Well, I mean, this is Saturday, June 27th, we should mention. Who knows? It could be Kyle. We'll just have to wait and see on that. Okay.
Well, I said Jet Dryer on Saturday, so June 28th would imply that Kyle wins on Sunday.
Yeah, if this race gets pushed back. Okay, so, all right, I'll give you that. I'll give you that much. Let's see, my pick for this. You got a lot of options to choose from here, but I think for my pick, I'm going to actually, I don't know who I'm going to pick because the Toyotas do tend to do really well here. Although I think I'm going to go with somebody who, I'm not going to pick a Toyota, actually. I'm changing my mind. For this first race, I'm going to pick someone who has won here in the past, actually. So they have history with this place. In fact, they got their first career victory here a long time ago. And I think it's going to be somebody who won last weekend. I'm talking Ryan Blaney. I think, he's shown a lot of speed on big tracks. He had that tire not gone down, he would have finished second at California. He had a really good run going at Las Vegas. He's had the speed at these big tracks. Pocono is a fairly large track. It's 2.5 miles. Ryan Blaney and with Todd Gordon there on top of the pit box, it's clear they're doing really, really well together. So I think Blaney picks up right where he left off. He goes out, and I think he dominates this race at Pocono. I feel like he's going to have a great run. Give me car number 12 to go 2 in a row for the Cup Series and at least take the first race of the Pocono doubleheader. Now, as for the second race, which is scheduled right now for Sunday, June 28th. Now, this is given that everything falls into place and that nothing goes wrong with the weather, although, let's be honest, it can happen. 40 cars on the grid. The Pocono 350, ironically, and this is all too fitting, the race was initially going to be known as the Worry-Free Weather Guarantee 350. How fitting it is that there is rain in the forecast for this weekend. You could not script it any better, even if you tried. Hal, I'll start with you on this. There's 40 cars. Basically, all the cars from the grid for the first race are here.
I'm just going to say that name was asking for trouble immediately. Oh, Lord. Looking at it's not going to be easy because you have no idea where anybody's starting, but shots in the dark, I guess. Let's go with, you know what? Matt DiBenedetto.
Whoa.
I'm going to go with Matt DiBenedetto. Quite frankly, if he wins, I'm just going to accept that I should never think about who I'm picking, see a name that I think can do it, and go with it.
All right there. Hal calling for a first-time winner with Matt DiBenedetto. Justin, your pick.
It's almost like this is the race that Mother Nature is giving everybody karma for by having it rain every single race this year. I swear we are going to have double rain. And this, however, I will say this race will not get postponed to rain. It will have rain in the middle of the race because it's going to follow the homestead pattern. And unfortunately, we know nobody can pass at Pocono. Nobody can get around anybody at Pocono. That PJ1 is going to be irrelevant because that is going to get washed away quickly. It is going – I mean, basically, we had storms here in Lake County tonight. Those storms are heading to Pocono Raceway as we speak, and they are expected to arrive on Sunday. Seeing what I saw tonight, hey, that's going to wash away all the PJ1. So the people who had the fast cars on Saturday are going to have the fast cars on Sunday. There is going to be no chance of anyone outside of the top 7 and from the first race winning the race on winning the race or the second race. I was about to say Sunday, but I'm taking that back because it's probably going to be Monday or Tuesday or Wednesday or Thursday whenever Pocono decides to have a sunny day, which is basically never, because it's 2020 and we're expected it to get rain for pretty much every single race this season except for Kentucky, because even in Mother Nature doesn't want to go to Kentucky. Hey, so I'm just going to flat out say it. Kyle Busch is going to sweep the weekend. He's going to shut everybody down. We won't have any more what is going on with Kyle Busch. There's conversations because he will sweep the weekend.
All right. Okay, so we have one pick for DiBenedetto, one pick for Kyle Busch. Let's see. I've already picked Ryan Blaney to win the first race, but I got a feeling that ain't going to happen. I don't think he's going to sweep the weekend. But I'm not going to hop on the Kyle Busch bandwagon. I think, well, let's be honest. I've kind of pledged myself to pick somebody else just to make things interesting. And I am going to pick someone else. I'm going to pick Eric Jones. I feel like if there's any track that can help him get his season back on track, it's Pocono. Eric Jones, he tends to run really well at Pocono. In fact, I think he's got in the top 5 every time, or a top 10, if not every time, close to every time. Yeah, Pocono is one of his better tracks. It's one of his best tracks that he runs at in the Cup Series. So I think this is the season, this is a race that helps Eric Jones get his season on track. He gets, I feel like he can get a win at this doubleheader, put himself in the playoffs, and hopefully for Jones, get a good run going throughout the season, just a good streak of results and even some wins. He does not have, this is his 4th season in the Cup Series. He only has 2 career wins. So, for Jones, it's got to be coming soon, basically. So that basically rounds out our picks. That also wraps up our show too. We've gone just past 10 o'clock Central Time here. So, Hal, Justin, any last words before we call it a night?
Listen, I told you all to be nice on social media. You did not comply. I'm going to find out your favorite drivers now. I told you I was going to pick them. They're never going to win again. This is what you've done.
All right. Be serious.
Hopefully we can talk about racing, albeit it's Pocono. I'm not expecting much this week, but we're now in the summer. We're now in the dog days of summer, and this is where we're going to see the men and separate from the boys. And if you saw what Talladega, you might want to skip out on this one, but and I'm kidding. Hopefully the racing is good at Pocono. Hopefully this doubleheader format works for the sake of Pocono, and just be kind to everybody. Everybody just be kind on social media. Ignore pretty much the outside talk. They're going to say what they're going to say for whatever narratives they want to create. Ignore it. And just ignore, just flat out ignore it. Be kind to one another, and don't be a bunch of racists.
Yes, don't be racist. I'll lead right away with that. Don't be racist. You shouldn't be on you shouldn't be online, and you shouldn't be in general, really. There's I was going to say, oh, and by the way, with a lot of these news organizations that were reporting on NASCAR, let's be honest, were they really that informed? No,
Nope.
they weren't. Exactly. That's what ticks me off, I think, the most, is that these organizations reported and just had very, very little information that they dug out to actually, they didn't do research, which that annoyed me to no end. And honestly, that's one of my pet peeves about being a follower of the sport and a big fan and like a media member as well. Just please know what you're reporting on. And I'll end tonight's show with this because it was a really heavy show. There's a reason why, ever since we've been doing this show online, that I ended every show with the same spiel, saying, take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and be kind to one another, both in person and online. First, take care of yourselves. It's a difficult time that we're all going through right now. Look out for your own health, both physically and mentally, as well as emotionally. Take care of yourselves first, above all. Take care of each other. At the same time, it is important that we are selfless rather than selfish. When you go out, if there's a mandate saying wear masks, wear it. I know it's probably a minor inconvenience, but it's for the sake of everyone else around you. Just be considerate of others. Have the compassion to know that there are other people out there that could be having other issues that may not affect you. And lastly, be kind to one another. Please, please be kind to one another, both in person and online. Online, don't say something that you wouldn't say to somebody else's face. And even just in person, treat everyone with respect. It's a golden rule that's taught in the Bible. And just something back from my old Catholic school days when I still went to a private school. Treat others the way you would want to be treated. I would dearly hope that everyone wants to be treated with respect and kindness. So if that's the case, start treating people that way. Just treat people with respect. That way, if we all follow these simple rules, which I don't think are too hard to follow, then and only then we can make society and the world a better place. And in the end, that's really all we want, right? That's going to do it for us on this socially distanced edition of Burnin' Rubber. Thank you ever so much for watching or tuning in. This episode will be out on YouTube and Anchor in hopefully within a few hours. So with that out of the way, with all that being said, on behalf of Hal Eastep and Justin Palmer, take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and please be kind to one another, both in person and online. Until next time, I'm Sterling Siemens, signing off.